Hello, happy Thursday night, guys. I am so happy to be here with you again, doing another Facebook Live. Tonight, we are talking all about sensory diet activities in light of the new post that just went up last night, actually yesterday morning on yourkidstable.com. So that is what I call one of my mega posts. It has tons of tips and ideas in it, so much so that I wanted to also talk with you here and really make sure that you guys are getting everything that you need from that post, because there's so much information. There's over 100 sensory diet activities. So we're obviously not going to talk about all of those activities tonight, but I am going to pick the easiest and the most powerful ones that I really love as an OT, the ones that I've used over and over and over again with families as I've worked with them in their homes, and the ones that I use on a regular basis in my own home as well. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about quickly is, as I'm going through this, all of these ideas with you, you're going to start to wonder how to know if these are the right activities for your child, because not every sensory activity is a good fit. While there are some that work for a lot of kids, they're not always a perfect match. So at the end, I'm going to give you a really awesome way to figure out how to figure out exactly how those sensory activities are going to work for your child and which ones you should pick. This is just not like, let's do every sensory activity with them. I also want you to know that if you're listening here today, sensory diet activities are really awesome activities for all kids. Your child does not need to have a sensory processing disorder or ADHD or autism or any other diagnosis. Sensory diet activities are awesome for all kids. But if you do have a child that you know has sensory needs, then you're definitely going to want to have more of an organized sensory diet where you're regularly putting activities in. And I promise that doesn't have to be hard. Okay, so before we dive in, I have one more thing I need to tell you, and that is also to never ever force your child to do a sensory activity. You may have set something up, you may have thought this is a really great idea, and then they're not doing it. But we never ever want to force them. Every one of our sensory systems is so unique, and we really need to be respectful of that. So your child may actually be having a negative reaction to something that feels very comfortable to you. So we want to be really respectful of that. It doesn't mean that you don't want to work towards getting them comfortable with that sensory activity, but we never want to force. Okay, now on to the sensory diet activities. We are first going to talk about sensory diet activities that are what we often call organizing or even alerting. Okay, so what that really means is these activities tend to, in general, it's not 100% of the time, but these activities tend to help your child focus better, pay attention better, follow directions better. Basically, it just kind of organizes and puts everything into place for them so they can do whatever that they need to do. Okay, so the first one that we're going to talk about is jumping. And I'm going to be really general here. Jumping of any kind, okay? And I'm going to, with every one of these activities, I'm going to give you two ways to do it. I'm going to give you the DIY version that you can do right on the fly, and I'm also going to give you a toolbox tool. So something that might be something you have to invest in, maybe just a couple bucks, maybe a little bit more money, but there's two ways that you can get this done, and you might want to have both options, honestly, so that you're cycling through different types of activities and you have some options for your child. So for jumping, the DIY version of that is jumping on the bed or jumping on the couch. Those are things that almost every one of us probably has in our house. And while there are some traditional rules against doing that, there are amazing sensory benefits to that. And you have these things built right into your house with a little bit of safety and a little bit of precaution. You can use those DIY tools that are right in front of you with zero setup whatsoever. So you will just have to find a way to make sure that you're safe, that your kids are safe, and that you're comfortable with that. Now, I know some of you are not comfortable with that. It's just a no-no for a variety of reasons. So you may want to have something in your toolbox. And I have to say that this is probably my favorite sensory tool. We have one in our house, and it's a mini trampoline. It's actually a small trampoline. It has a bar on it that the kids can jump on whenever they need to. And my middle child, who definitely has some more sensory needs, this makes a huge difference in his day when he uses it. It actually kind of blows my mind away how much better he listens to us when he has been on the trampoline. But outdoor trampolines are really great too. Lots of people have outdoor trampolines in their backyard. Even if the weather's a little chilly, bundle them up, get them out there, and get them jumping on the trampoline. Fantastic activity. Okay, next activity is riding, okay? Riding anything, basically. I'm talking about push car, like push toys, bikes, scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, any of that stuff is tons of sensory input. They are getting lots of proprioceptive input. They are getting lots of vestibular input from the movement. They are expending lots of energy. So any kind of riding stuff that you have, no matter even for the youngest toddler, that can be in, one of the little push cars that they push themselves or that you push for them, to bicycles and hoverboards and all of that kind of stuff, is wonderful sensory input, and it's stuff that we already have in our homes. So to take that up a notch, one of the items in my toolbox that not everybody has, but is probably my second most favorite sensory item, is a scooter board. I actually made a DIY version of these myself, but you can snag one up on Amazon for really cheap and get your kid on your belly and let them push around the house, push around the driveway. It's a fantastic sensory activity. And what I love about it is it's the kind of thing that you can just pull out and you don't really have to say or do anything. Your kid is going to hop on there and start using that and get tons of sensory input. A great activity to do before homework, before school, before a time of transition. Love the scooter board or any kind of riding activities. Okay, next on our organizing and alerting sensory activities is pushing and pulling heavy objects. Now, I could go on and on about this topic in and of itself, because there are probably 100 different activities I could have listed that are pushing or pulling heavy objects. There's so much sensory input that is given for proprioception during these activities, and it is tremendously organizing for kids. And there are so many ways when we start to think about it that we can build it into our day. So one of the best ways to do this is with just regular kind of chores around the house, like carrying groceries, raking leaves, shoveling snow, helping carry the laundry. All of those sorts of things are pushing and pulling for your child. Now, one of the toolbox items that I love that is super cheap, and you actually may even have this in your home, is a rope. A rope is wonderful, and it's actually, in this post, you'll see a picture of my son using a rope. It's the main image for this post, and it's tied to a doorknob, and he's just tugging on it. He is my sensory kid, and we use the rope for lots of different things. We play tug of war, we play row your boat with it, we pull and push each other on the scooter board with it, but I've actually never tied it to the doorknob for him. I've done that in therapy before, and he loved it. He was hanging from it, pulling on it. You're gonna wanna have something really sturdy to tie it to. Okay, so a really heavy piece of furniture, it could be something outside that you anchor it to. You could tie it to some kind of push car, wagon, let them push and pull heavy things, but a rope is invaluable. The one that I really like, I just picked out at a home improvement store, and I tied a couple of big knots in it so they can get a big grip on it. But a jump rope works really well too, and you probably have one of those even in your home. And I'll also say all of these things that I'm listing, you can find links to in the post if you're interested in actually grabbing one of these toolbox items. Okay, let's move on here. One more item that I want to share. Remember, there's many, many more in the post, but one of the other top activities that can be really alerting and organizing for your child is using vibration, okay? Vibration can actually also be a calming activity, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It'll be a perfect transition into calming activities. But when vibration is used for organizing activities, it's used in short bursts. And one of the best ways to incorporate this into your day for a couple of bucks, because you're doing it anyway, is using a vibrating toothbrush. Now, I will say that some kids are really sensitive to vibration. And if that's your child, definitely be respectful of that. Don't buy the vibrating toothbrush and have them freak out and then make them use it. That's definitely not what we want to do. But you might want to have their regular toothbrush there and encourage them to use it sometimes, or maybe just try the vibration on the side of their cheek, or maybe you want to actually just let them use it without turning it on for a little while and help them start to get used to the idea of having that vibrating toothbrush. Okay, so that's a great way. They're brushing their teeth once or twice a day anyways. Use that vibrating toothbrush. Huge difference. And by the way, that is incredible input for kids that have oral sensitivity and all kinds of picky eating stuff. It's one of my top tips. Just as a sidebar there, I'll throw that out for you guys that are watching. The toolbox tool for this is actually a little handheld vibrating massager. You can pick these up on Amazon, which is where I have a link for like, I don't know, $7. They look like little bugs, and they're used to like put on people's back. They come on with a really quick on and off switch. They're a great thing to give to your child. They can use that completely independently. You can have it sitting around. And remember, in short bursts, it's really organizing and alerting. So if they're having a hard time focusing on a learning activity, if you're trying to do a craft with them, or maybe it's homework, you can give this to them and be really silly and say, oh, the bug's gonna get you, and stick it on their back, or run it down their legs real quick in short bursts and kind of get their energy and their activity up. But if they're jumping off the walls and they're kind of hyper, or they're really tense or having some anxiety, and you need to calm them down, you're going to use the vibration as in a longer period of time. So you might rub it on their back for 5 minutes, or let them hold it in their hand for 5 or 10 minutes and let them rub it on their own body. Then vibration becomes very calming. So that is probably one of my best calming activities, and it's one of the things that I always had in my bag when I was a therapist. I love using vibration. There's so many awesome vibrating sensory toys out there, but these are like some great basics to get started with. Okay, so let's talk about some more calming activities. Also on the list, remember, vibration goes either way, but for specifically for calming, another great activity is rocking. Just rocking. It's something so simple. If you think back to like what we do with our babies and just rocking them, it's how we soothe them. So many of us are still soothed by rocking. Think about how nice it is to sit on a porch swing or on a glider. Our kids love that too. So if your kid is getting ramped up and they're really hyper, a great way to calm them down is to scoop them up in a bear hug. Hugs are really great, by the way, in general for calming activities, and get them in that glider and rock them back and forth. Many of us still have those baby gliders sitting around somewhere in our house, or a rocking chair. That's a great tool that you already have in your home. Your child can even sit in that by themselves and rock themselves a little bit while they look at a book or hold that vibrating toy, and really double up on all of that calming input. So the next the way that we can bump that up and take it like to the next level with a toolbox is to get a rocking toy. So like a rocking horse, again, all kinds of sensory toys that a child can easily climb on and off of and kind of just rock themselves back and forth. Now, next item on the list, and this is definitely an OT favorite, is weighted objects. The DIY version of a weighted object are heavy blankets. So if your child responds to weight, and this is something that not all kids are going to like, and I would never want you to force this on your child, but some kids respond crazy good to weighted pressure. So think about putting heavy blankets on top of them. Think about putting them in heavier clothes to wear for a little bit. That's a great DIY version. Now, to take it up a notch, you could make a pillow that has beans or rice in it, or buy a weighted lap pillow for them. The kids love to drape that around their neck, drape it across their lap. It's wonderful for when they're going to bed, or if, again, they need to just get the wiggles out and sit down and work on an activity for a little bit. Really easy to pull out and use. You just want to use that in short bursts. But tons of weighted sensory toys out there that can be really powerful and amazing. Okay, and our very last activity that we're going to share here is a quiet spot. Sounds so simple, right? And it really is, but it can make a huge difference. And I think sometimes it's so easy to overlook, and I even overlook it with my own kids sometimes. The DIY version of having a quiet spot to calm down is having the child go to a bedroom or another room that nobody is using. Okay, you probably have that space already in your house somewhere. To take that up a notch and make it even better is to have a dedicated space. We use the term sensory tent a lot, and that can be any kind of pop-up tent. It could be a blanket over some chairs, like old school fort style, any little nook or cubby that they can crawl into where you maybe have some soft blankets, where you maybe have that weighted lap pillow and you have the vibrating toy, or you have all of those things where they can go for a couple minutes. You'll find that your child will go in and initiate that all on their own when the space is provided, if it's something that they're seeking. But it's also something that you can totally direct them to. You can absolutely say to them, hey, I think your body seems like it's getting really wild and it's almost time to sit down to eat. Why don't you go have a break in the quiet space or in the sensory tent, whatever you call it. And these can be incredibly easy to set up. You'll find a link. I actually have a whole how-to I did last year on how to set one up really easily in your home, and that's actually linked in yesterday's post also. Okay, so this is a lot of information, and I see that I have some questions. I'm going to get to those in just a minute. If you're just tuning in, this is actually coming from yesterday's brand new post, 100 plus sensory diet activities. And I've just shared my favorite and top activities that I think are the easiest and are the most powerful. So you can find that by just going to yourkidstable.com. It's going to be the very first post on there, or you can use the search bar at the top, but you're going to see it right away when you head over there. Okay, now the big question, and what I promised at the end is, how are you going to know which activities are best for your child? Because as I was talking here, I hope you guys were really listening and hearing that not all activities are going to fit for every child, and nor should they. Some activities are really good to help them get used to, but not all are necessary. Like, it's not important necessarily that your child tolerate weight. That doesn't matter. So it's just a matter of figuring out what activity is the best for them and kind of pulling this all together so that you have a plan that you can use on a daily basis that isn't hard. For those of you that are doing sensory diet activities, do you think does it seem overwhelming to you? Or do you feel like you have a system that you can kind of work through? I feel like one of the things that I hear from people a lot is they see all these sensory diet activities on places like Pinterest or at OT, but they don't know why they're doing them at home or which activities that they should be doing, or how often they should be doing them. So these are all really big, important questions, and I am going to be answering them in a really awesome workshop next week with my wonderful co-host, Wendy Bertagnoli. She's a special ed teacher and also has a kiddo with sensory processing needs. And we have a unique 4-step plan that we teach to help parents rock a sensory diet at home really easily. So I want you to head to yourkidstable.com/workshop, and I'm going to put that link right into the comments when we're done, and sign up for this free workshop. It's next week. You can find the dates and the times. There's actually 2 different days and times. We're doing one in the evening and one in the afternoon. And make sure you get your name on that list, because you're going to want a seat for this, because we're really going to take all of this to the next level. And instead of just talking about cherry picking sensory diet activities, we're really talking about how to make this work for your child and how to know what activities are best for them. It's a big difference there. So that's really what we're talking about. That's really what we're looking for. And I know that's what you guys need too. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask here, but you can head right there, or you can actually even click on the sign up now button right on this Facebook page right here. So I hope that you join me there. I'm going to answer some of your questions now. And I want to give one more shout out and say that my lovely co-host to that workshop, Wendy, will be doing another Facebook Live on Tuesday. And she's going to be talking specifically about indoor sensory diet activities. So it'll be another chance to come and get some more information. I will also tag her page underneath so that you guys can find her really easily and listen. She's a incredible, wonderful resource, and you're definitely going to want to tune in for that also. Okay, let me see. I see questions. Lori, you ask, these are activities for food sensory issue kids, correct? So not yes and no, Lori. Some of these activities, like the vibrating toothbrush, can be really huge for kids that have sensory needs and are also having food aversions. Not all sensory kids have picky eating stuff going on, although many do, as you all know. So in general, this is one of the things I really talk a lot about, is when our sensory systems are put into the right place, when they're regulated, everything is working better. They're going to be so much better regulated that they're going to be able to eat better. They're going to be naturally open to more variety of food. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have some preferences still. That doesn't mean that there isn't some more specific strategies that need to go in. It just depends from child to child. Sometimes when a child is regulated with a sensory diet, when that whole plan is put together, it all comes together and we see big changes with their eating. And at a minimum, we see improvement and growth for sure. So yes, most of these activities are more across the board sensory diet activities, with the exception of the vibrating toothbrush. That's one that's really specific to eating. But even if your child is not a picky eater or has eating issues, it's still a really great tool to use just from the vibration and proprioceptive standpoint. Okay, Kim says she's very excited about the course next week. I'm so excited too, Kim. I'm assuming that you are signed up. I'm thrilled that you're going to be there. Dory says, can you give any advice activities on a child with SPD who recently started running from the table and refusing to sit when he doesn't like the smell of other people's food? I can't. That is a very common issue, Dory, and very frustrating and very difficult, I know. So we want to do 2 things. First, I want you to acknowledge his feelings and make sure that you're respecting that it might be really difficult for him. I want you to think about his placement at the table, and I want you to think about telling him ahead of time what's going to be there and maybe involving him a little bit in the cooking process. That will help desensitize him a little bit. You might also want to think about giving him something to smell that he really likes. So You could give him like a little sachet of like lavender that he could hold in his hand and like just kind of put up to his nose if he needs to, or take a little bit of essential oils and rub it on his wrist before dinner so that he can smell that a little bit, and not maybe the thing that is bothering him. But I would also think about some of those activities that we talked about at the top of this video, which were the like jumping and riding activities, the heavy work activities. That might really help get his system organized and help him ready to sit down. So I would start there also. Okay, guys, let me see who else. I think I saw another question. Oh, thank you, Nick. She says, loved what you're doing. Hope to chat soon. Please feel free to leave a comment. Sign up for the workshop next week. All right, guys, I think that's it for the questions live right now. If there are more questions and you're watching this later tonight or in 20 minutes, feel free to leave a question here and I will get back to you as soon as possible. And I just want to remind you to hit that button to sign up now and join the free live workshop. These are a pretty rare opportunity and it's brand new. We've never done this workshop before. We're so excited about it. We've been busting our butts on it for the last couple months, and we have so much information to share with you and some really fun surprises too. So save your seat. We have an evening time and an afternoon time, and I really hope to see you guys there. You can also head there by going to yourkidstable.com/workshop. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.